It is my first live transmission, and it is in English. That is a reason to. Let's get right into it. I wouldn't have expected to do this now. I just suddenly have had a minute to sit down with a pencil and paper and write down a few thoughts that I've been having lately, and then suddenly they came together in such a way I hadn't expected, which also warrants me to lay them out here. I think they could be perhaps. I'm not an expert in geometry or in quantum physics. I'm not even sure if physics alludes to uh, basically the study of physicality or matter, and for that matter, what is matter, and that's what maybe geometry has maybe not failed to explain, rather has it upside down. So let's get into it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If time is a dimension of space, or looking at it as a dimension, it doesn't really matter if it is a fourth dimension, because we have three, starting by the line, the plane, and then the volume, the third dimension, and there's the fourth. If it comes to that, and there's more dimensions, and they're studied in like shadow analysis in math, which is if you take a sphere and you have the shadow of a sphere, it's a circle. The circle has a mathematical formula, the sphere has a mathematical formula. How do you collapse the mathematical formula of the sphere down to the shadow of the sphere, which is the circle, or the plane? So there's also mathematical formulas that explain the collapsing of the fourth dimension into the third, the fifth into the fourth, etc. So it's all mathematically demonstrated, except that apparently you say that we can't imagine the fourth dimension. Now, if that fourth dimension is time, and it's a dimension of space or space matter, which would be another way of saying physicality. So is really physics the extension of geometry? They took separate paths. I don't really care what is what. I'm not an expert in either one, as I said, and this may have heuristic value because it may lead to my own in-depth analysis or others. So that's why I have to. I felt the urge to spell it out live. I really hope this is saved by YouTube and actually it can be accessed later. Really, that's the whole point. And if not, I'll have to do it again because right now I don't have my backup camera with me. So, if time is a dimension of space and it doesn't flow either back and forth, like from cause to effect, but it just spells the boundaries of that dimension, right? Then a line is not an extension of a point. And try to follow that thought through. I can explain them in a later video too. But that leads to the idea of quantum geometry. It's a bit like Fourier's chain. I thought of that later. So, it starts here. Does point have matter? A point is supposedly defined as not having matter. Because if it had matter, you could still split it and split it and split it, right? So, if a point exists, it does have a location in time. And so that's why it doesn't really matter if time is the first or the fourth dimension, seen from the 36th or whatever. It doesn't really matter which is the 12th or the. It's not ordinal. It's not an ordinal scale. So point exists in location in time, within a frame of time, and the previous and the following frames, or not. Okay. if you've got the previous and the following frames, you have a period of time. So it exists within a period of time, or within a frame of time, and or. So the period of time spells a body, right? As it's also been said that volume is also a function of time, or space is a function of time. Volume within space, right? Because if there's no time, how could you measure that passage of one point to the next, right? Um, so it has been conceived, and time is ill-defined. You can also watch my video, which is like 6, 7 years old already, uh, with my time theory, again in English, and Mental Wars is also in English. You know, every time there's an important thing to bring up, it's in English. So think of like the body of the solar system within a period of time, as that is the frame, the moment, a blink of the solar system, or whatever we want to call it in our time framework. And like, our entire life is from beginning to end, uses up all the spaces we have been in throughout our life, right? This is a nice space I'm at. That's why I'm looking outside. The same way, like I was saying, like the body of the solar system's got this center and all these little planets running around them, and it's moving up this way. So if that was taking a snapshot of that with time lapse or whatever, reverse time lapse, you would have the body of the solar system as some sort of a DNA swirl, if you want. I don't know. Uh, and that would be the body of the solar system within a period, which is a moment from another framework, which can also be sliced in time, just as any matter could be sliced. That's why it is said that a point has no matter. But its volume is not a shadow, as in math. So that's where we start departing. And if an effect is inevitable to a cause, or else it's not a cause, then the cause or causes are intrinsic to the effect. So what's first, the chicken or the egg, if you want to say, or what comes, the effect determines the cause? And the point does not exist without the line, because it has no volume, but the line has no volume either, and the plane has no volume either. And that's in traditional geometry, right? The plane would not exist. I mean, the point cannot exist if there's no line to contain it. There's not a point next to it, or a non-point, then hence an imaginary line. So everything is entangled, right? Like in the quantum theory, they've discovered, like through certain experiments, that this, the definition of the state of matter at one point incides at another point by entanglement, at another point of matter, of actual subatomic particles, which should also be fractions, right? And so everything is entangled. So entanglement is not discernible. It's like I say everything is white, then you can't see anything, right? Or if I say everybody's intelligent, then intelligence has no meaning. It's not a scale, it's not something that discerns anything, right? So entanglement is not discernible from entanglement. Versus, if that point has matter, it can be split ad eternum. So, it's more like than if a point exists, it has a location in time. The point is existed. It's either inherent in the line or in the plane, or it's as it is existed as inherent in the mind. You see, it's not the mind that makes the point, and the point exists. It does have not only a location and time, but a space matter value as per the mind in which it exists, or it is thought, right? And the point is existed also as derived from matter of volume, as I explained, but not generating it, right? It's not the point that's generating the line as an extension of the point. That's the way we thought about it. It's by fractioning. And here's my new concept, fractioning. Not the other way around. So, well, it also, the point is also existed as precondition of the cause that is stemming from the effect, right? So I'll give a little point upon fractioning versus generating, because generating is splitting, fractioning is splitting the point ad eternum, forever. You split that point and you always can split it so it's infinite, so it really has ultimately no volume, and as it extends itself into space, it becomes a line. But line has no volume either, it's just that boundary. Let me say the first idea that I said at first about boundaries. If time is a dimension of space and it doesn't flow, it just spells the boundaries of the dimension. Is that the first theorem of quantum geometry? Or which one of the things I've said is the first theorem? And the first concept would be fractioning versus generating. So generating is the discombined fractioning of mind thought versus what has already been generated. So fractioning occurs in the context of what already has been generated, and in dynamic relationship with it. So math applies to physics as a function of mental forces, I would say of mind forces. Math applies to physics as a function of mind forces. Hey, there's two people there. What about that? Anyhow, may this be the legitimate first intro summary. I hope it's saved, dated. Cheers from Patagonia. This is where I'm facing. The old stone face. Those stones were moved by the mind, carved by the mind, brought to the island by the mind, and at the island, the mind has it located as a fractioning thermometer device. Tepitote Otehenua, which is the belly button of Earth. And it's also like a dial, in which you can generate by the combined fractioning of mind thought. You can generate earthquakes. Can you? Would you? Oh, there was a flash of light there. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.